That feeling when you're standing at the pharmacy counter, staring at the price tag of something you really need to survive, let's say an EpiPen, and the one thing standing between you and a potentially fatal reaction is the pharmacist proclaiming that your bill will be $600. $600 for the same drug that's been around for decades that used to cost about $100. So what happened? Did the medicine get better? No. Did the company suddenly face higher production costs? Not really. What changed was the law. And the people who helped change those laws are the same people who used to write. Welcome to the Cash Caucus, where money talks, politicians listen, and the rest of us pay the price. This reoccurring series exposes the lobby groups, PACs, and hidden funders shaping U.S. politics behind the scenes. Because every campaign contribution comes with a string, making every vote have a price. In this first episode, I'm going to break down everything you need to know about what lobbying is, how it works, and why it shouldn't. I'm creator and host JJ Hastings. Let's jump. This is where we meet the real villain of our story, lobbying. Now, I know what you're thinking. You've heard the word tossed around before. Lobbying sounds shady, a backroom deal sealed with a handshake and a briefcase full of cash. It conjures up images of smoke-filled rooms, well-dressed fixers whispering into the ears of powerful lawmakers, and the cynical exchange of political favors for massive corporate gain. But the truth is way more complicated and way more powerful. The term lobbying is a broad umbrella for an entire multi-billion-dollar industry built on the simple constitutional right to petition the government. It's a sophisticated ecosystem where knowledge, access, and timing are a real currency. Take Mylan, the company behind the EpiPen we talked about at the start of this video. Between 2007 and 2016, they jacked up the price from $100 to over $600, and then spent millions lobbying state governments to pass laws that required schools to stock EpiPens, not just epinephrine injectors, the brand name EpiPen, the $600 EpiPen. It's genius in a supervillain kind of way. They use the system not only to protect their monopoly, but to expand it, while families, teachers, and even first responders struggle to afford this life-saving product. It's not just about EpiPens. Lobbying touches everything. Who can afford to send their kids to college, the air you breathe, the food you eat, your bank account, paycheck, your safety, your debt, your grocery bill. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what lobbying is, how it works, and why it's both a constitutional right and one of the biggest moral gray areas in American politics. Okay, let's start simple. Lobbying is not typically a briefcase full of cash in a dark alley. The actual basic definition is trying to influence decisions that are made by government officials. It's a right so fiercely defended by the US Founding Fathers that they protected it within the First Amendment. The line about petitioning the government for a redress of grievances, well, that's lobbying. So if you ever called a city council member about a pothole, congratulations, you're a lobbyist. But here's where it gets tricky. Lobbying today isn't about potholes. It's about trillion-dollar industries. And the people doing it aren't everyday citizens. They're professional insiders with research, data, and political connections. Think of lobbyists as the consultants lawmakers rely on to understand complex topics: energy policy, healthcare, AI, agriculture, banking. And most commonly, they're your former elected officials, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a. There are three main types of lobbying you should know. The first is direct lobbying, or the meeting in the hallway. This is the classic image. Lobbyists in suits come face to face to meet with lawmakers or their staff on the Hill. They come armed with talking points, data, sometimes even fully drafted bill language, to make it easier for those busy politicians to say exactly what's being presented for them to say by big business. They provide information, and exchange, they gain influence. The second is grassroots lobbying, or the organized uproar. This is when lobbyists mobilize you. They run ad campaigns, social media pushes, petitions, all to create an illusion of public pressure. They make it look like voters are demanding something, even when the demand was potentially orchestrated by a PR firm. Now, of course, this is not a takedown on community organizing where local people come together to make change. I'm very specifically talking about very wealthy corporate lobbying. Well, here's where it gets uncomfortable. There's a revolving door effect that allows high level staff, agency heads, and most lucratively, former members of Congress to parlay their public service experience and private contact lists into six or sometimes even seven-figure careers. It's a system where former senators don't just get lobby jobs, they become highly sought after commodities, selling the priceless institutional memory and personal relationships they developed while in office. Understanding this mechanism is the first step in understanding how Washington truly operates. Here's how it works. A senator, representative, or high ranking government official spends years serving the people. They make connections, they learn how the system works from the inside, and they get to know who really pulls the strings. Then they leave office, and the next day, they're hired by a lobbying firm. Same halls of power, different paycheck. They go from writing laws to getting paid to influence them, sometimes by the exact same industries they used to regulate. They already know the players, the rules, the shortcuts. They don't need to buy access. They are the access, and they cash in on it. That's why some people say Washington doesn't have two parties. It has one revolving door. And this nukes the playing field for small nonprofits and small businesses who can't afford to play the game nor buy off the players. And why it's so hard to separate public service from private profit. The revolving door keeps spinning, and every time it does, trust in the system takes an additional hit. Because let's be honest, when your former senator can make 10 times their old salary lobbying their coworkers, who exactly are they serving? Now, to be fair, lobbying isn't all bad. It's a necessary evil. So let's break down the case for and against lobbying as a mechanism for our government. The case for lobbying. It gives lawmakers access to expertise they genuinely need when drafting complex legislation on everything from financial derivatives to climate change. Legislators often lack the specific detailed knowledge required. Lobbyists provide this technical insight, acting as crucial, if sometimes biased, conduits of information. It also allows all kinds of groups, not just corporations, but also civil rights organizations, environmental groups, teachers' unions, to have a voice. These groups use lobbying to ensure their legitimate concerns and constituents are considered in the policymaking process. And there's also lobbying for good. It is, at best, a mechanism for the informed and representative governance of a diverse, complicated society. But what about the case against? Well, money talks, and corporate money screams louder than anyone. The reality is that the resources available to Big Pharma or Wall Street dwarf those of a local consumer safety group, skewing the conversation toward their financial interests. Also, the sheer amount of cash flowing from private interests drowns out the public voice. Through campaign donations, lavish fundraisers, and promises of lucrative post Senate careers, lobbyists create an access privilege that is denied to the average consultant or constituent. And then finally, when policy becomes about profit, not people, democracy starts to rot from the inside out. This corrosive influence ensures that laws are written to benefit the well connected donor class rather than the general welfare of the public. Well, what can you do about it? Because here's the thing, lobbying isn't going anywhere. It's built into the system. But accountability, that's up to us. First, follow the money. Check sites like Open Secrets to see who's lobbying your representatives and where that money's going. You'll be shocked how fast the picture comes into focus. Second, use your own voice. Call your representatives, write letters, show up on calls for volunteers, even when the ask isn't glamorous. You're your own lobbyist for your own family, your community, and your own ethics and values. And your influence grows every time you choose to use it. The invisible hand that shapes policy only stays visible if you don't look for it. And now you know where to look. If this made you angry, good. If this made you curious, even better. This series is diving into that whole ecosystem: lobbies, PACs, the factions and pipelines, the playbooks that shape what our government does in your name. And if you want to make sure that you don't miss out on the next breakdown, go ahead and like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. The more people who understand how power actually operates, the harder it comes for power to hide behind talking points. I've been JJ Hastings. This has been the Cash Caucus, where money talks, politicians listen, and the rest of us pay the price.